We drifted into that wordless fracture in our marriage, the kind no one prepares you for, where affection doesn't collapse in shouting matches, but dissolves into quiet distance. Our smiles became rehearsed, our conversations purely functional, and the closeness we once shared had been eroded not by one fight, but by years slipping by unnoticed. I decided to plan a date night, not to magically restore everything, but to at least make an honest attempt. I chose the same little Italian place where we used to laugh over cheap wine and terrible pasta. I reserved a table, picked up her favorite flowers, and reminded myself that love deserved another chance. When I told her about the plan, she smiled, and for a moment, I saw the woman I married. But before that warmth could settle, she casually added, "I invited a coworker to join us. Hope that's okay." The words hung in the air, thin and smoky. Something heavy settled in my chest, but I nodded anyway. He showed up 20 minutes later, carrying the kind of self-assuredness people practice alone in reflections. Every detail, his hair, his jacket, his shoes, broadcast the importance he felt he carried. She rose too fast when she saw him, smoothed her dress, and hugged him a little too long for someone you just happened to share an office with. Not inappropriate, but unmistakably familiar. When he shook my hand, his eyes flicked over me briefly, evaluating, dismissing. In his mind, I wasn't competition. I was merely filling space. And right then I understood that this dinner wasn't an innocent gathering. It was a confession about to take form. The conversation began politely. Bland workplace stories, light jokes, mentions of people I didn't know, but they exchanged looks at certain names, laughed at things only meaningful to them. Their words curled around each other effortlessly, while mine stayed untouched. I watched her body language, the way she leaned closer when he spoke, how her eyes brightened for him, but dimmed when I asked something. It was like seeing a stranger wearing my wife's face. Then, just as the main course arrived, it happened. He reached for the bread basket, and their fingers touched. She didn't withdraw. Instead, she seemed to settle into the moment, a small surrender that echoed louder than any fight we'd ever had. My pulse slowed. My thoughts sharpened. Not because of that tiny gesture, because I already knew. I had seen the late-night messages, the calls she thought I slept through, the hotel charge she tried to erase from our account. I kept quiet then because I needed to choose the moment the truth would surface. Tonight, it presented itself. I reached into my jacket, took out an envelope, and placed it on the table between us. No drama, just truth delivered on paper. "I thought tonight was about us," I said softly. "But I see I was wrong." They both froze. She frowned, uncomprehending. He stared at the envelope like it might detonate. Inside was every piece of evidence, screenshots, receipts, timestamps, proof of love traded away in parking lots and hotel rooms with complimentary breakfasts. Her expression shifted from confusion to fear to shame. The facade she wore daily crumbled. He looked like a man who finally understood he'd walked straight into something far bigger than he could handle. He opened his mouth, but no explanation formed. She reached for my hand, whispering, "Please, let me explain." But explanations are for accidents, not choices made repeatedly. The room seemed to quiet around us, not in curiosity, but out of that instinct people have when something painfully human unfolds nearby. I didn't raise my voice. I simply took the bill, paid it, and stood. Not out of ego, out of sheer fatigue. She grabbed my wrist, trembling. "Can we talk later? Please?" I looked at her with clarity, not anger. "We'll talk, but not tonight. And not as husband and wife." Outside, the cold air washed over us. Cars passed, unaware that my world had just been split open in silence. She followed me with rushed explanations, loneliness, confusion, mistakes. He lingered awkwardly near the doorway, suddenly stripped of every ounce of confidence he walked in with. I let her talk, but didn't answer. The only question I asked was, "Are you ready to be completely honest with me?" Even then, she hesitated. That hesitation did more damage than any confession could. I called a cab for myself and one for him, not out of kindness, but finality. She stood on the sidewalk hugging her arms, tears streaking her face. I told her to go home, pack a bag, and think about what she truly wanted, not how to save face, but whether she sought forgiveness or freedom. She couldn't have both anymore. I didn't go home. Instead, I parked somewhere with a view of the city and watched the lights blur behind my tears, thinking about how love rarely dies with an explosion. It dissolves in quiet moments like this. The next morning, I woke to dozens of texts and missed calls. Please, anger, apologies. Regret delivered late is nothing more than memory. It doesn't heal. I answered one call. Her voice cracked as she said she was sorry, that it meant nothing, that she still loved me. I let her cry, then told her, love isn't proven in speeches after you're caught. It's proven in what you do when nobody's watching. Weeks passed in a calm storm. Lawyers, counseling sessions, dividing drawers and bank accounts. No scenes, no public drama. Just two people sorting through the ruins of something that once held promise. He vanished from the narrative entirely, like someone slipping out of a party after breaking something irreplaceable. She drifted between tears, denial, and pleading. I focused on rebuilding a version of myself that didn't depend on her remorse to breathe. The ending wasn't cinematic. No dramatic music, no final monologue. Just papers signed, keys returned, and silence filling the space where our life used to echo. But this silence was different. Steadier, cleaner, honest. One morning, sunlight spilled across the floor, and I realized the anger was gone. The grief had settled. I wasn't broken anymore. I was free.